Okay, welcome back. Hope you're ready to learn. We're in Lab 8. We're going to be on page 24 and 25 in the Etron Circuit Labs, the Basics V3 Intro to Electronics. I'll link in the description box below how to purchase these supplies. When you purchase, make sure that you get the book and the kit set. And we have purchased this little box thing at the Dollar Tree to hold all our parts and stuff. And then we purchased also this little kit in Walmart. If you've watched my videos for any period of time, you'll see all this, okay? EtronCircuit.com is where you purchase them, but I'll link it in the description box below. Class, today we're going to be learning about capacitor. Introduction to capacitors. Now, we already learned about capacitors and how to find their value. Here's a capacitor right here. And I see something about this that I would hope you could answer. Does it have polarity? If you answered yes, great. It surely does. Well, let's jump on into page 24 and 25 in our Etron Circuit Lab books, Intro to Capacitors. And with that being said, I want to let you look at that capacitor for a minute, and I want to tell you some information. What is a capacitor? It's an electronic component that charges and discharges current based on the needs of the circuit. You can... I also want to tell you that a capacitor serves as a critical role as acting as a storage center for electrical energy that will charge and discharge the energy it stores based on how the circuit is being used. Okay. There's also known what's called passive component and an active component. A passive component is a component that consumes energy but cannot create power gain, and requires no electrical power to operate. Okay, that's a passive component. And then an active component, a component that has the ability to amplify a signal or produce power gain. So active has the ability, so I just think about like active is someone running, like you're running a marathon or something, you're active. If you're passive, you're probably at home reading a book or something. You're just not creating power. So, active, the ability to produce power gain, and passive would be cannot create power. Okay, those are two things I wanted to go over. Let me say once again that a capacitor is an electrical component that charges and discharges current based on the needs of the circuit. Okay, so with that being said, if you turn back to page 14 in your Intro to Electronics, there is, page 16. I'm sorry, not 14, page 16. There's this little section on Kerr's Kinetic Energy Recovery System. I would like for you to go read about that technology about the capacitors when we went over capacitor values and types of capacitors. So just read about that, Kerr's. We're studying capacitors again. That was how to find the value of capacitors. If you need to watch that video, go back to Lab 4 and watch that video. I have a good video on how to find the value as well as the different value of capacitors as well as maybe potentially the types of capacitors, but I may have left the type of capacitors for y'all to just read about in your book on page 17. Okay. Remember, we are using the V3. The Basics V3 Intro to Electronics. Okay. All right, jumping back over here. In our lesson, I'm gonna kind of draw a picture of a capacitor on this right here. So I'm gonna move this capacitor over here so we see that it's a capacitor. Okay, so it says capacitor, and here we have a capacitor. So if I wanted to draw this, I could do it more like oval, something like this, and then it has two leads coming off of it. Okay, so if I did it like this, and then it has stuff written. So this does have polarity. See how one's longer than the other? Just leaving it down there, you can see. So if I was doing this, I would say this is my anode, and this is my cathode, This means negative. This means positive, okay? And you need to know that because I shouldn't have to keep saying that, okay? So that's just something you need to know. So make sure you do learn that. Okay, so in my little picture, I'm going to try to box this in. Okay, so this right here is representing my capacitor. Looks pretty close. Maybe not exactly, but pretty close. Okay. We're going to say that it's a 10 microfarad. When we have the charge coming in, we have charge coming in, charge coming in, charge coming in. And then on your negative side, you're going to have charge coming out, okay? But when you have all this charge coming in, when you have, like I have 3 up here, this capacitor will store that energy until you need it. So until there's a need for it inside your circuit that you're building, the capacitor will store up that. So I think of it like it's like this could be a cup or a jar or whatever, like I drink out of it. It can hold the energy that it needs to until you're ready to use it. Okay? So there's a good example. So this is the charge coming in. As it charges up, this capacitor right here is our capacitor. It will hold it until it needs to discharge, and this is our discharge side. Okay, so this is what we would call as like the discharge cycle or just discharge. So as energy comes in, electronic flow comes in, electricity, current, whatever you want to say, comes in, this capacitor will store it until it's needed throughout the circuit. So in our last lesson, if you notice, when we took the battery off the battery snap, if you had a good connection and your capacitor had stored anything, the LED stayed on for a little bit longer. Okay. All right, so let's continue to look at this. A capacitor will smooth out the current. So in the